And we're live.
Well, how amazing is this? Good afternoon, good evening, good morning, wherever you happen to be joining us from. And I say us because it's not just me this evening here in the UK. I'm Joanna Rawbone. I'll say a little bit more about me later on. And what we're doing in this very first Intent to Flourish broadcast is me, together with my co-intention, my co-CEO, we're going to talk a little bit about how intention can lead to flourishing when synergy is at the heart of our actions. Now, I can't be a co-founder on my own. So who am I co-founder with? Over to you, Szebastian.
I am Szebastian Onne and I'm the Almost Naked CEO. We'll do the introductions a little bit later, but um, I'm excited. I'm nervous.
Yeah.
And I have to say, I'm very, very grateful because this is real time intention becoming flourishing. So, this episode and this whole thing that's you're about to experience from today onwards, I think it's a big thing for us.
Yeah. So why don't you kind of grab a brew or something, maybe something a little bit more interesting, depending on where you are in the world, and settle in, because certainly over the next 30, 45 minutes, something like that, what Szebastian and I are going to be doing is sharing with you from our hearts in terms of what happens when we get into action. And you may have noticed from the banner that was up there for a little bit at the start of the show, is that there was a play on words there between inaction, i.e., stilted, not doing anything, and inaction. And if I were to tell you that 65, 70 minutes ago, this wasn't even a thought in our minds. But there's something that really happens when two people connect, where there is such synergy that we can no longer ignore it. And because of that synergy, because of the energy that creates between us, we actually decided, with a nudge from somebody in the background called Parker, and I'll get to him or them later, but we actually decided that there is no better time to jump on and start talking about this, because certainly from my perspective, and you'll hear from Szebastian about this in a moment, I am a recovering perfectionist. There would have had to have been hours, if not days, of preparation to do something like this. But actually, when we come from a place of pure, from good, from honorable intentions, actually showing up unprepared, showing up being prepared to be vulnerable, modeling how it can be to actually be live and to share slightly unfiltered, is something that's very powerful. So grab yourself something, maybe something to make some notes, and let's get started. So, Szebastian, over to
Absolutely.
you.
Absolutely. Joe, one thing I'll say from what you just shared, it is not really entirely not prepared because the thing is, at the back of our minds, you and I, and both individually, and since we've been working together as well, the intention was always there.
Yeah.
And, we are thinkers. So we have always been thinking about things that we need to do, we want to do, what we want to give to the world, what do we want to leave behind. So I think intention is always there. And that's where sort of, that inaction and inaction comes in play. That all of us, I would say all of us, do have intentions. Some call it dreams, some call it goals, some call it aims, some call it ambition. Different names. I think they're all intentions. The only difference between the intention and outcome, or happiness or joy or fulfillment, or as we call it, flourishing, is whether we take action on that intention, whether we put the real effort in. So I think
Mm,
what I'm going to say is we already had the intention, we already knew what we're going to do, we just didn't give it a shape and a form,
yeah,
and here we are.
yeah. And isn't that often the case that now what you may not know is that both of us identify as introverts. Certainly those people who know me will know that's the case. But just being in the energy of someone like Szebastian, you may not think initially that they're somebody who you would classify, that you would identify as an introvert, because there are so many myths and misconceptions. So there is something really powerful here about recognizing a pair of introverts, recognizing that the intention is there, and yet we're still holding ourselves back. We're still not getting into action about it. There's still something either holding us back or we're holding ourselves back. But there's that saying, isn't there, something around, an idea whose time has come cannot be held back. And I feel like we're there right now. Yes, we've had the intention for a long time, and we've been doing a lot of thinking and not much action in terms of moving it forward other than the thinking. And then all of a sudden it's like the time is now. The time
And
is
I
now.
Absolutely. I think what happens is I do actually first want to acknowledge our friend Helen. Helen's here from UK. Hi, Helen. Thank you for watching in. And guys, wherever you're watching in from, please say hello. Let us know where you're watching from. We'd love to involve you in this show as well. It is all
Yeah.
about you. It's not just about us at all. So talking about, I think when it comes to intention, the things that hold us back are usually the shame, the fear, the past experiences, the failures. And I don't see failure as a negative thing, but a lot
Yeah.
of people are only stuck because the first thought they have is, what if I fail? They
Yeah.
already stop because they're scared of not succeeding. And I think that is the difference between inaction and inaction is, how we say, if you haven't tried, you already
Yeah.
did fail.
Yeah.
So how would you know until you actually take an action and see what comes?
Yeah. So and let's just pursue that for a little bit, because I suspect this is just going to be one of those rich conversations typically that introverts love. What is it that holds you back then, Szebastian? What has you be inactive rather than into action?
For me, so here's a very, very contradictory part of me. There was a time where I kind of always justified my introversion by saying I'm trained extroverted introvert because I was ashamed of being seen as an introvert because, as you know, the bias had
Yeah.
me believe that being an introvert is less than, being an introvert is something bad, it's something
Yeah.
not good enough. So for me, even to accept that I'm an introvert, I had to say I'm an extroverted introvert because that felt like, and I'm going to give a little, example that many other people in the community will understand. A lot of gay men, before they come out, they actually say, well, I'm bisexual because it's less prejudice from society because
Yeah.
it's kind of still man enough
Yeah.
in then gradually, different frustrations. The thing is, whenever you're pretending, whenever you're not being yourself, you will get frustrated. There will come a point where you'll be like, either something bad happens or you go, I can't I don't, I can't do this. So
Yeah.
it's the same thing for introversion as well. When it comes to me, I've always been, as I said, a contradiction is I've always been a person who was out there in many ways until I realized what really introversion is, because I just thought of that as, why am I having such bad time? Why is my energy low?
Yeah.
Why can't I do this anymore when I'm the one who started this? So what I'm really saying is there was a
Mm,
point when I was out there doing everything, having, I had a lot of confidence, but what held me back, the trauma of various things that have happened in my life. I'm not going to go into that right now. The betrayals, The failures, as I said, failure was such a big thing for me that failure meant, well, life is not good enough. Whatever I'm doing is not worth it. Why even try? So all that held me back. But we'll need a therapy session, so I won't do that. But just the shame, the fear, the past experiences made me always think, made me a perfectionist. The bigger one is people pleaser,
Yeah.
and most importantly, a constant stream of self-doubt. Even things that I have been extremely good at, and I'm saying that without an apology, I started questioning them.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm not good enough. Maybe I've been lying all this time. People call it imposter syndrome.
Yeah.
But the thing is, imposter syndrome, a child doesn't have imposter syndrome. They don't know what impostering is.
No, we learn
So
that.
we learn that it's a learned behavior. And
Yeah.
I think that's what has been holding me back. All these questions, self-doubt and all that.
Yeah.
Uh, and I think that's where the biggest thing for me has been being okay with making mistakes, being okay with my past, being okay with accepting my emotions and yet
Mm.
believing in my dreams. I think that is the most important part for me, that you can be emotional. You can be really, really sensitive person, and yet you can have aspirations that is the biggest thing for your life.
Yeah,
How about
absolutely.
you?
Well, before I go into that, I just want to pick up on something you said, because I love the analogy used about kind of, when gays are coming out, they kind of talk about being bisexual first before they go the fully I'm gay. And I think that's why so many people have latched onto the term ambivert, because then they're not in that camp of being, I'm an introvert, which still has so much kind of negative press and myth around it. So ambivert seems okay because, yeah, I can do quiet, but I can also kind of do really, really loud and jolly and stuff. So I think that analogy absolutely works. So thanks for starting with that. And when it comes to, yeah, I should remember that when I ask you a question, you're going to turn it back on me, shouldn't I? Perhaps wise up to that at some point.
Well, the question is, what's the biggest thing, biggest, whether shame or fear or whatever, what is it that held you back?
Yeah.
Especially because I know a little bit of your story. As long as you were constantly showing that you're an extrovert, what was it that was not, that was not letting you be yourself?
The biggest thing for me was such a big sense of I'm not okay as who I am. And I can't say it was as strong as shame. There certainly wasn't guilt there, but there was a kind of a knowing that I wasn't like other people. And so there was just, what was holding me back was that sense of I'm not enough as who I am. So if I pretend to be more like the loud extroverted people, then I'll make it in life, because my career as a trainer, as a speaker, as a coach, I need to be able to be in front of people and interact with people. And who I naturally am isn't somebody that would have been necessarily comfortable with that, because all of the role models I had were big characters. They were kind of entertainers, if you like. And it's only when I hit burnout that I thought, actually, I love what I do. I know I'm good at what I do, but there must be another way of doing this. So that's when I finally got out of my own way, I think. And for me, that was a big part of then starting to be more intentional about my work and how I go about my work, is recognizing that I need those breaks, recognizing that I need to pause, recognizing that I need to take moments throughout the day when I'm able to recharge my batteries. Otherwise, I will be so dead flat at the end of the day that it'll take me 2 or 3 days to recharge. And my business life isn't like that. So I think that's probably my answer to my own question.
Absolutely. I just want to quickly acknowledge a couple of comments that have come in. So Patty's here. She says, me too. I'm not sure, Patty, which point are you saying me too, but We'll get to that, or feel free
Yeah.
to let us know, 'cause we're not sure. We've been just going on, so let us know. And August says, you're both more than enough, by the way. So we'll
Thank
take
you.
your answer. We'll take your version and be happy with that. One thing that I'll say, Joe, is you talked about, done is better than perfect. And that's the thing. A lot of times
Yeah.
people don't try because they're trying to get it perfect. They're trying to start when I reach to this point, when I have done this. And it's not even about perfection. Let's talk about parents. Let's talk about specifically women. I will do or pursue something in my career once my children are in fifth grade. I'll do it once they've gone to college. I'll do it once my grandkids start walking. And by the time you realize life is gone, and then
Yeah.
mostly what you're left with is regret.
Yeah. And in my case, kind of once I'm 30 pounds lighter, I'll do all of that stuff once I'm 30 pound lighter, so some of what holds me back is comparisonitis as well. And that's something that I've definitely let go of, in terms of I am me and I'm not for everyone. And neither do I want to be. There's not enough of me to go round to be there for everyone. But I know there are those people who will resonate with me and resonate with my work and feel, I hope, the authenticity that I bring to my work. And that's what will be what draws people towards me, what the magnetism is, potentially more than, whether I'm 5'8" and 30 pounds lighter. It's nothing to do with that. It's about my sincerity, which a lot of introverts naturally have, my authenticity, and my genuine passion for enabling introverts to flourish, for advocating for them.
Absolutely. And hold that thought. I just want to acknowledge, because Patty's just clarified. She just meant she's here as well, and she's from US. I wonder where from US. Virginia, of course. We know you. um, what you just said, Joe, actually makes a lot of sense. And the thing is, the social construct really changes us. I think the moment we are 3, 4, we start talking, walking, and the moment we start learning no and yes and good and bad, what happens is we are trained to believe what's an ideal weight, what's an ideal height, what's an ideal skin color, what's an ideal everything. There are ideals set for us that we did not choose, or
Yeah.
that, to me, really what is more important is that never mattered to me as a child. Everybody was
Yeah.
equal for me. Everybody was special for me. How they treated, we all say about this, how people made you feel. As a child, what is the most important thing for me? How did someone treat me? How did they make me feel? A child becomes friends with anyone who makes them feel good, who makes
Yeah.
them giggle, who makes them laugh, who makes them smile. That's the only criteria. And what is bad for them is anybody who makes them sad, anybody who makes them cry.
Yeah.
That's how simple a child's measurement of good and bad people or good and bad company is. But when the social construct comes in the way, we start adding all these stacks of what's the good thing, what's the bad thing, and then it changes into, if you don't do this, you're not good enough. If you do this, you are recognized. I think the definition of success changes so toxic in such a toxic format that by the
Yeah.
time we actually are about to do something, we really don't know what success are we looking for. At least that's how I felt at a certain point in my life.
And I think that takes us full circle back to being intentional and living an intentional life. And that doesn't mean that everything is routine and rigid and plans and tick boxes and all that sort of stuff. For me, I can be intentional in play. I can be intentional when I'm going down a rabbit hole of a conversation with somebody. I can be intentional about that. So it isn't about rigidity to me. it's actually about giving me almost breathing space to know that if what I'm doing is aligned in some way with my purpose, with what I'm curious about, with where I ultimately want to be in life, then let's go with that, even if it's a bit of an adventure, even if it's a bit of a roller coaster. So I would also love to hear your version of intentional, because there are several things that we share. There are several points of connection for us, and intentional is one of them. Even though we see them quite differently, at the heart of what we're talking about, there's, an enormous similarity.
Absolutely. Before that, I'm just going to acknowledge August's comment. He says alignment is the real deal. And I think that's where it all really works when it comes to collaborations, working with people. And I think even in families at home, it is all
Yeah.
about alignment. It is all about really, one of the things I think is, as you were saying, even though we look at intentional, it's in our own versions, in our own way. I think the reality about that is it's our experiences, it's how we came to understand what does an intention do for me, what does it mean to me, and that created our definition. So for
Mm,
me, as we talk about synergies, the biggest thing is what Parker jokes and we talk about. You call it shared consciousness. We call
yeah.
Parker and I call it shared brain. I think for me, intention is something that really takes me to the place, takes me to a point in my life where I know that I have done something good, where people around me are happy because of my actions, and where I feel that I have everything that I need. And it brings me joy to have reached there because that was a result of my hard work, and to be able to give back to the community. You can call me so, but being an empath for me,
Yeah.
it's never just about me. And I'm not talking about the people pleasing part. I'm talking about, to me, if I see somebody in pain, it hurts me. That's an empath. You know,
Yeah. Yeah.
if I can help someone, it's I do. So for me, intention is how can I be very clear what will I do in my life, on what terms, and what will
Mm,
be the outcome. But the biggest thing in intention for me is what will I not allow to happen in my process,
mm,
in my actions, or
mm,
as we call it, the boundaries.
mm.
I have to say I'm a forever in recovery for my boundaries, but boundaries are still very much one of the pillars of what my intention is, what I will not be okay with, how I want to achieve certain things, for who I want to achieve, including myself, and where is
Mm.
it taking. Because for me, as I always kind of say, I want to see a bigger, better, bolder world where everybody is able to live happily, everybody is able to celebrate their talents, their skills, and everybody is able to
Their
dream without
differences.
being excluded.
Yeah. And celebrate their differences, right?
Absolutely. That's one of the biggest things. One of my ex-boyfriends actually, my biggest question to him always was, but you and I are so different, but this, but that, there was I was just very simple thing is I was robbing myself of my own joy because I constantly kept questioning why would he choose me? He's rich, he's
Wow.
handsome, he's successful. Why me? And he always, number one, insisted that I need to stand outside the box and see why I am attractive as a person, physically or in character. But the biggest thing
Yeah.
he said was celebrate the difference. It's not
Yeah.
about what is different in us. It's about what can we do with that difference creatively to make each other happy, to make our families happy. And
Yeah.
I think that was one of the biggest mantra that I learned to start accepting myself and others.
Yeah. And it's interesting that you use that example of, the previous boyfriend and him getting getting you to kind of step outside and see you perhaps the way other people see you. Because I think there is that truism, really, isn't there, about how the most attractive people are those with love in their heart. And, you know, it's attractiveness is the words that come from their lips, is their intentions, is the kind of love in their heart, their actions, rather than the physical appearance in some ways. And for me, that's one of the points of connection I feel between us, is that I know we're both coming from that place. We live in very different worlds. We operate in very different ways. You know, we are almost poles apart in terms of who we are. And yet there is that undeniable connection that we both feel in terms of who we are and how we are in the world.
And I think that's where really what's important is recognizing the synergy that we have, recognizing we can focus on the difference, or we can focus on what's the common ground and how those differences can actually help us be more creative, be more fun, be more productive with each other. You know, there are certain things you can do that I cannot. There are certain things I can do that you cannot. But together, that means now we have double a set of skills.
Yeah, exactly.
We don't have differences. We have twice the skills now. So it's all about, as you and I talk otherwise, it's all about the reframe. It's how I'm thinking. It's how I'm choosing to look at the same situation. Am I looking at, oh my God, she's so different, I'm going to work with her? Or am I looking at, oh my God, I don't know how to do that, but she's really good at it. So let me ask Joe, can you do this? And I'll do this. And that means not only we are delegating to each other really creatively, but also now I have an extra skill set that I didn't have before, because I know somebody's supporting me, and same for you, right?
Yeah.
The biggest thing that I think is we're talking about, you know, holding back. We're talking about, we started off with saying, you know, what's holding you back? The thing is, universe tells us, hey, this is going to work for you. Here's an opportunity. Go take it. But we, as we talk about the things that are holding us back, we just go, oh, but what if? And you know that. Sorry, world, I'm not ready yet. I'm not going to share with you, but Joe knows it, and I'm going to give you a little hint. It is not easy for me to collaborate with people. And it takes a lot before I make that decision. So, you know, there are fears, there are experiences, there's everything else. But there have been constant nudges. And that is something, Joe, you can very well explain, because that's really your forte when we talk about universe is giving you nudges. How do we recognize them and how do we take action on that?
And I think that was one of the things that kicked off this whole thing, but certainly got us to where we are right now at 2029 UK time here in the, you know, here in this particular broadcast, is that there comes a point where if we choose to ignore those nudges, if we choose to think, oh, well, yeah, there's something, but I'm not sure what, and we don't actually take the time to explore it, we're going to miss the absolute gold. And I think that's also what I meant by being intentional when I'm off exploring, when I'm going down rabbit holes, seeing what may be there. Because all the while I keep on this narrow track, and I think being intentional means rigidly kind of sticking to whatever path I think I'm on, I'm missing so much in terms of the things that are around me, the opportunities that are being created around us. I got to listen to a motivational speaker on Tuesday morning at a big client event I was working at. And he said something that I found really profound and I think fits beautifully here, actually, which is that opportunities are around us all the time. And we may not notice them today. It may be that they present themselves tomorrow. So what we have to do is spend today making the keys that will fit the door of opportunity of tomorrow. Because what we don't want to do is get to tomorrow and go, damn, there's that door and I where's the key that fits it? It was back yesterday and I didn't bother to craft it. And he talks about that from a position of always looking to improve who we are. And for me, in my stage of life, that is also looking to expand my horizons, my connections, my understanding of the world, to really open myself up, because whatever upbringing I've had, whatever narrowish circle I've operated in, certainly for the last 20 years has been expanding. And I'm loving that expansion, because as my perspective is expanding, so am I actually expanding, and my possibilities, my opportunities are expanding. So we have to take the time to notice those nudges, to take the time to be in the present moment and just be with that for a moment, and ask ourselves, so what is that? Is that something I can explore? Is that something I want to explore? Let's just spend the next 2 days exploring and see where that goes. Because even if it doesn't take us anywhere other than a rabbit hole, we'll have had a bit of a journey and learnt something about the nature of rabbit holes. And as you say, there is no failure. Everything is about learning. So for me, it's so important that we notice those nudges and explore them.
Absolutely. I think the biggest thing is how we see, or how we are taught to see failure, because the thing is, failure itself is a negative word. But for me, if I am, number one, as you said, learning a lesson from that,
Yeah.
I am willing to grow because of that lesson. I think the biggest thing that we need to do is shed our ego. We don't need to wallow in our failure and feel embarrassed and ashamed, and because our ego is telling, well, you didn't do well, nobody likes you, nobody's, you're not worth
Yeah.
it. All that for me is ego, because I don't want to be seen in a certain way, and now I'm going to sit there, spend days, weeks, months, because it didn't go the way I wanted. Or I can choose, okay, so that happened. A, what role did I play in it?
Yep.
B, what did I learn from this? And the most important thing, what can I do different next time that it actually works in my favor?
Yeah.
And I think the biggest gift that we can take away from that is to, whenever I say this, you'll see that, on some of my work as well, when either me or somebody else is saying no to me, I have two ways of looking at it. I can look at it, no, don't do it again. No, it's not worth my time. No, I'm not good enough. Or NO is new opportunity.
Yeah.
Look at it as new opportunity for, okay, where can I go from here from what I just experienced? I'm not going to say learn. I'm not going to say what I failed in. I'm going to say what I just experienced. I used to say,
Yeah.
uh, life journey. I used to say destination. Now I think life is actually an expedition that goes on. It's a never ending expedition, because until the last breath, you get to learn something if you're
Yeah.
ready to.
Yeah. If you're ready to and willing to. And what I reminded these young new joiners of a big firm on Monday and Tuesday, is that learning is not a passive activity. Learning is an active thing, an active experience. We will absorb some stuff just by being in a stimulating environment, if it's the right kind of stimulus for us. But actually, we need to actively engage in things in order to learn. So you're right, rather than when things don't go to plan, kind of, squirreling ourselves away and feeling sorry for ourselves and licking our wounds, to actually even be vulnerable enough to talk about it and to explore that in public. Because let's face it, everyone I know has had either a failure or an experience that didn't go to plan. So let's normalize, actually, it's what happens in life. There are ups and downs. There are parts, life is a bit of a roller coaster, and that's exactly what part of the definition of flourishing is. It's about experiencing all of that without it actually knocking the wind out of ourselves completely, but actually to recognize that that is life. Life is a whole host of experiences, some more enjoyable than others, all of which have the potential for us to make different decisions and absorb and take on more knowledge as a result of that. Sorry, that was a bit soapboxy, wasn't it?
Absolutely. And as you were saying that, what came to my mind instantly, immediately came to my mind is two different examples, which are really what we as human beings, most of us enjoy. Number one, in one of your newsletters, you talked about, life is like a cha-cha-cha. You go one step forward, two step backward
In
and
a
all that.
dance,
Now
yeah.
you can look at it as like, oh, I'm taking one step forward and then I'm going two steps back, I'm not progressing. Or you can take it as a fun activity, like, okay, well, I am learning how to. So I look at it as I'm learning how to stay balanced even when I'm going back rather than falling, and how to have fun with it, how to laugh, how to smile, how to romanticize it. But from what you just said, there's another thing. Life is really, if you look at it, nothing but music. Why? Because what you're talking about, failure and success, it is the notes, high and low notes. It
Yeah,
is,
yeah,
you go real high, you go real low, you're somewhere in the middle. So you are really, you can either create a symphony out of it, or you can feel sorry for yourself and not try anything. And the biggest thing for me in that is, why, especially introverts, but also other people as well, why don't we try certain things, or like this collaboration, why don't people try that? Because, and you can speak better in terms of introverts, people believe we don't work well with anybody, which is a myth in itself. But also the bigger thing is, we don't take action because we feel we are alone. We don't have anybody supporting us. We don't have anybody watching us. We don't have anybody appreciating us. So we've already decided we failed. We already gave up before we start.
and I think there's a slightly different take on that as well, which is that, and I want to continue your cha-cha and your dance kind of, and the
Absolutely.
musicality of all of that, because it's perfect in that I can dance solo, and I don't dislike dancing solo, but having done some other types of dancing, West Coast swing being one of my favorite forms of dancing, learning to dance with a partner, learning who's going to lead, and trusting that their leadership is okay and that I'm going to learn how to follow in this moment, and be kind of in their hands, whoever that is I think a very powerful lesson for introverts, because we do have this sense of, and there is some truth in the fact we work better alone quite a lot of the time, because we are already overstimulated mentally, too much noise around us, being in teams where we're not getting our voice heard. All of those things really impact us negatively. So what we do is kind of buy into that whole thing about we work better on our own. We do in some situations, but actually we also work beautifully in partnership when we can dance with a partner, and to those high notes and low notes, through the crescendos and through the kind of the quiet slow pieces, then that's when we're really, I think, mastering life in some way. And one of the things that I really celebrate about what we're doing here is we're modeling how two self-confessed introverts can learn to dance. And we don't even know yet, in some ways, whether we've got the same sheet music in front of us or whether we've got the same tune playing in our ears. But actually what we're doing is we're trying out some steps, and we're learning as we're going, and we're laughing as we're learning as we're going. We're having fun with all of that. And that's one of the big myths that I would love to dispel about introversion, is that we can't work in teams or we can't work in partnership. We absolutely can. And it can be fun if we allow ourselves to be intentional about what that dance is that we're doing with the other person. You're on mute. Can't hear you, Sebastian.
Well, sometimes being over cautious is not helpful. So what I was saying is, I absolutely agree. But the thing is, it is about recognizing who is the person that gives me the energy, who energizes my spirit, who makes me excited about what I'm doing. And somebody who's not just a cheerleader, but they see you, they
Yeah.
understand you. I think for me, the biggest thing is if they can understand when I need the space and when I'm ready to work with them,
Yeah.
and they understand what excites me, what
Yeah.
makes me interested. Because I think if you know what makes me interested, it's going to get me interested more because
Yeah.
there's an alignment, there's a synergy. And
Yeah.
I think when especially for introverts, when we feel safe with somebody, you were talking about trust earlier, and my issues with trust, and I'm not,
Yeah.
there's no secret about it. I'm very open about that. So it is not about if I cannot work with people. I have worked with a lot of people, and I can work with a lot of people. For me, it's about how I work with somebody I really trust, and how
Yeah.
I work with somebody just because I've been put in that position and I have to perform my, moral obligation or social sort of
Yeah.
construct. So I just do it. That changes my energy. You will be able to see when I'm just ticking the boxes and getting over with it, and when I'm actually enjoying because I feel safe that if I screw up, they're going to be there. They'll be able to guide me, and more importantly, they
Yeah.
will not judge me for my mistake. They will not judge me for what people call imperfection. Um,
Yeah.
and I think that importance of understanding the need for psychological safety, which you talk a lot about, if
Yeah.
I know that there is no judgment, if I know that there is no insult coming my way, there is no rejection coming my way, I am more willing to take risk. I'm more
Yeah.
willing to make mistakes knowing it's okay. It's
Yeah.
okay.
And I always look at that through the lens of Timothy Clark. He's one of my, I'm a big fan of Timothy Clark and his 4 levels of psychological safety. And because it starts with inclusion safety, where it's okay for me to be who I am, that for me is the base level that we all need, is that I now feel safe enough to show up, not pretending to be something I'm not, but to show up as who I actually am. And once we can do that, the world opens up for us in terms of trying things, in terms of experimenting with life, in terms of being playful and seeing where it takes us, knowing that if it doesn't work out, that's fine, because nobody, as you say, nobody is going to judge me for it. Nobody is going to hold it against me. What we're going to say is, well, that was quite a ride. What now? What do we take away from that? What do we learn from it? What are we going to do the same? What are we going to do different? But they are all experiences in life. But it all starts with, I feel safe enough to show up as who I am, knowing that nobody is going to judge me for being me.
And I want to add to that. I will still feel anxious. I will still feel afraid of failure. I will still be nervous about things. And I'm talking about all of us. We will still have fears. We will still have all those anxieties that make us. But the thing is, those butterflies, they're also a good thing, because if you're not excited as well as nervous about every big step you're taking, are you
Yeah.
really investing in something that you want to? Because when you're doing something unfamiliar or bigger than what you've done before, you're bound bound to feel funny. You're bound to feel like, oh my God, you talk about jitters, you're bound to have those jitters, but those jitters are not a negative thing. It's how you see it. And more
Yeah.
importantly, I think from what you're just saying is, I can never say that I will not be scared. I can never say that I'll be okay with, I'll trust anybody instantly. I will never be able to say that I am not anxious. Those are the things that live with me. But the thing is, who am I working with? And how do they respond to my insecurities and my challenges? And how do they
Yeah.
make me feel protected and safe, as you said, not judged? Which is where I want to go towards, we're going to close soon. I want to go towards the difference between inaction and inaction that we talked about. So do you
Yeah.
want to take that one?
Well, for me, it's really interesting, I think, in that if we go back to the holding us back bit, the bit that causes inaction, I think it's getting caught up in that perfectionism, in that stressing and worrying about it not being perfect, it not being right. And therefore, that's the bit for me that then has us go, well, I won't even try. I won't even take the risk. And then, of course, what we tend to do is give ourselves a hard time for the fact that either there was a missed opportunity or something that we could have done or something that, we would have liked to have done but didn't. And that I'm big on living life without regrets. And I don't see that how I can live a life without regrets if I'm allowing inaction to hold me back, if I'm allowing myself to get stuck. So I think that's something for me to really think about, is that when I notice those little fears, when I notice the anxiety or the anxiousness, when I feel the perfectionism starting to kick in and my inner critic kind of piping up with, will it be good enough? Will you do a good enough job? Then I know that's a warning sign for me that, I'm getting in my own way. What I need to do is kind of step out of that and almost say, to hell with whether it'll be good enough. It's good enough for now. It's good enough for today. It might not be good enough for tomorrow or forever. I might want to improve on it. But you know what? It's good enough for today because it's authentic, because it's real. And I think that's what really matters.
And I'm going to make kind of a cliche statement here, but we spend so much time living in the past and worrying about the future, we stop breathing in now. And I've done that, and I still do that, but it is about learning to overcome that. And I'm just going to, from what we just shared, I'm going to just kind of share a little formula that I told you earlier. For me, and it's going across the bottom as well, inaction is when your intention is held back to ransom by perfectionism and overthinking and fear, and it leads to frustration. It leads to not actually doing anything about what your dreams are, what your collaboration is about, or inaction, synergies like you and me in action right now, thinking about the intention, taking an action on it, and flourishing. And who can talk better about frustrated flourishing than you?
Yeah, my whole program, my big program, is about frustrated to flourishing, because as soon as we recognize those things that cause us frustration, and some of them are going to be down to us, some of them are going to be down to other people, what we can then do is start to change the way we view them. We can change the way we think about them in terms of the reframes that you and I have talked about. And we can certainly change the way we respond to them, so that what we're doing is creating a pathway for us to live a life that's fulfilled and where we're flourishing. So absolutely right.
Absolutely. Just for people to know where they can find us, I'm quickly just adding our handle as well. So anywhere on social media, you can find us at intent number 2 flourish. But I'm not closing it. What I was just going to say is, if you guys have any feedback, if you guys have any ideas, topics, anything that you want to talk about, let us know at that handle on any social media platform practically. and we'll discuss those topics, and we'll get to that. Not perfectionism, but we'll get it done. Anything that aligns,
Absolutely.
we'll get it done.
Done is
Right?
better than perfect.
Absolutely. So, Joe, as we close, I have to ask you, what's what's the whole message about the synergy in action versus inaction that you want to leave for people after this episode?
I think the big message from me really is the fact that as an advocate for introverts in particular, but as an advocate for people who want a different life for themselves, then what I do enables introverts in particular to have the confidence to flourish. And when anyone develops the confidence to flourish through synergies like this, through choosing a different life for themselves, through choosing to be in action, then anything is possible.
Absolutely. And as far as I'm concerned, what I look at is, you were talking about intention. My intention is that I'm here. Being an empath, I do care, and I give a damn about things, and I want them to happen in a way that makes life better for everybody.
Yeah.
So I guess at the end of this, all I can say is we're here because we have an intention that we all flourish together. And
Yeah.
we would love for you to team up with us, send us your ideas, send us your questions, and keep an eye on what we are up to soon. There's a lot coming.
Yeah. Perfect. And as the first conversation we've had, Sebastian, I've loved where this has gone, and I have loved following the trains of thought, and I know that there's more to come that I'm thoroughly looking forward to.
Absolutely. And Helen just said, thank you both. A lot of important stuff here. We appreciate that, Helen. Thank you, everybody
Thank
who
you,
watched
Helen.
with us and enjoyed our time with us. And we'll see you next time.
Fabulous. Thank you.
All right. I'm going to try and close this because we started this all so quickly. I'm just trying to find where the banners on, where everything is. So, guys, please bear with us, but we will be with you. And as I always say, until next, dream big and make it happen. We'll see you soon.
Thank you.